Hello and welcome. The end of a project is a time to confirm our results and celebrate our hard work. But the truth is, our work is not over. In fact, we're just getting started. In the control phase of DMAIC, our focus is to ensure that we sustain the solutions that we put in place during our project. Common deliverables of the control phase include control plans, control charts for our processes, updated documentation and standards, and a final updated project charter with the results identified. However, sustaining the results from our project requires much more than documentation. Let's review 8 control phase activities that are essential for locking in our gains. The first activity is to prepare control plans for our critical inputs. A control plan is a document describing the systems we use to monitor, minimize, and control variation in a product or process on an ongoing basis. Control plans also serve as important decision documents, guiding us on how to respond when there are abnormalities or when processes drift out of control. The second activity is to put into place poka-yoke, or mistake-proofing process checks, methods, and devices wherever possible. The application of mistake-proofing ideas to our processes helps to prevent common errors, smooth the transition to the new method, and make our control plans more robust. The third activity is to document the new process and remove all of the outdated documentation. This may include anything that documents the current and correct method, such as process maps, standard work, work instructions, forms, visual aids, etc. In addition, we systematically remove outdated process documentation. People may have copies of outdated documents stored at their workstations or other unexpected places. Unless we seek these out, we may someday use them by mistake. The fourth activity is to update existing training programs and train people in the new process. The goal is to ensure that everyone is competent in the new standards, documentation, and mistake-proofing methods. This includes updating any relevant training programs and materials for new hires. The fifth activity is to communicate the changes to everyone affected by them. When we make improvements, we must not only inform stakeholders who we know are interested, but also identify and inform people upstream or downstream who may be impacted by the changes. Most organizations require some sort of project report out to the project sponsor and senior executives. This is the sixth activity in the control phase. This typically covers what the problem was, what the project team did to address it, the result, and the next steps for keeping the process in control. We also close out the project by measuring the impact of the implemented changes on the primary metric and calculating the annual benefits of the process improvement. By the end of the sixth control phase activity, we should have thoroughly communicated the results of the improvement to the process owner, leadership, and sponsors, as well as to any stakeholders affected by the changes. The seventh activity is to set a plan to monitor and follow up with the process for at least the first 6 months after the project completion. For example, we can set up a recurring meeting or reminder to check in with the process and ensure that we're sustaining the results. We should continue this for about 6 months after the project ends, but this will vary based on how often we run the process and how easy it is to observe. The eighth and final activity in the control phase is continuous improvement. The main reason it's so hard to sustain improvements is due to the second law of thermodynamics. It states that entropy, or the measure of the disorder or randomness in a system, always tends to increase over time. This is why we may organize our desk, room, or garage, but before long, it's a mess again. The second law of thermodynamics also tells us that our tools and techniques will only take us so far in controlling our process and sustaining our gains. The best way to battle entropy is to practice continuous improvement, staying one step ahead by making things a little bit better every day. That wraps up our review of the essential activities in the final phase of DMAIC, which includes both continuous improvement and control. We'll see you soon.